Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the workshop, Academic Integrity for Tutors. My name is Hương Nguyen, and I am an e-learning advisor. And my colleagues today, Peter, who is a learning designer, and both of us are working for Italy at UQ.
Good morning, everybody.
We would like to start first by acknowledging the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognize their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. In the session today, we would like to discuss about the academic integrity issues and your role in this space at UQ. And after that, we will talk about the turning in submissions with focus on the similarity report and the AI indicator in student submissions. And after that, we will talk about the marker responsibility. What are your role in this space and what are the red flags that you should look out for when marking student submissions? So before we start our session, I would like you to join a little quiz as the warm-up. So you can scan the QR code using your mobile phone, or you can use your desktop and type ecopol.au. And the password to join is integrity. So if you use your scan the QR code and you see the message waiting for presenter, that means you are in the poll. And we will wait until we have reached a certain number of users and then we will start the poll. Yep, so currently I have 7 guests. So you will be joining us as guests, which is the anonymous participant. So we will not know who's providing which answers. Yep, I have 8 guests at the moment. So I will give you maybe another 10 seconds. All right, we can start with the first questions here. First, can you please answer the question using from 1 to 6 words? What does academic integrity mean to you? Yeah, I can see ethical practices, using your own ideas and work, being honest with study. Yep. No cheating. Yeah. Following ethical practices. Yeah. Honest, fair, and ethical. Yeah, I agree with all of your ideas here. Being honest and ethical with my maybe academic work. Thank you for your contribution. So now I would like to introduce Peter, who will present about the academic integrity at UQ.
Thank you, Hong. And thank you to all of you who've turned up today. It's really important that you do. And we appreciate the time that you've given up so that you can learn a bit more about academic integrity at UQ from the tutor's perspective. So I'm sure you're familiar with it from being a student. But as a tutor, you're part of the academic team. And as such, you have a responsibility to your students as well to know about academic integrity and to share it. We generally suggest that it's a really good idea if you can talk to your students about academic integrity and probably talk to them as soon as you meet them and then bring it up again throughout the semester. So an initial discussion, and then at other points, particularly say if they've got a new assessment task, it's a really good idea to talk about it then as well and look for pressure points in the assessment that might cause issues and offer suggestions on how they can get around them. I think with this, you really need to take it from the perspective of a message of trust, so that we know that students are here and their main goal is to learn, and we're here to help them do that. And for the most part, most students endeavour to do their work honestly and without engaging in misconduct. One of the things that you might mention when you're having these conversations is the advantage that that they will gain from having maintained academic integrity. So they'll develop pride and confidence in their work and their ability. They'll learn new knowledge and they'll know how to apply it. The other things that happen on, more for the university side is they'll be upholding a core value of trust in the university community, and it helps build the broader community's faith in the university that we do exactly what it says on the tin, that the students that graduate from UQ do so as a knowledgeable and skilled professionals ready to go into the work stream. Probably as part of that conversation, you might like to talk about the current situation, because we know when students are vulnerable, that's when they're more likely to engage in misconduct. So it could be that they've still got anxieties that in their life from the COVID time. We know that mental health issues increased over that time. It could be housing issues. It could be students coming from another country for the first time and living alone away from their parents. All of those little things that might make an issue for them. It could be the cost of living these days and making sure they've got private, appropriate housing. So if you acknowledge that those are issues, you make their concerns seem real. And because you're going to be in the role of helping them, they'll feel more comfortable coming to speak to you about it. When assessment tasks are distributed and you've had your little conversations with them, I think it's a really important step there to let them ask as many questions and clarify any points on the task itself, and also on the criteria sheet for marking, so that they're confident in what's going to be expected of them. We like to think of academic integrity at the university as something that leads to professional integrity when students leave the university, and also that builds their own personal integrity. Thank you, Hong. So let's look at the challenges that face universities all throughout the world at the moment. Look, we've got unintentional minor acts of misconduct that, particularly if they weren't intentional, then we're prepared to take an educative approach and, just to let the student know that, right, you made a mistake. Next time, this is how you should be doing it. Other ones like plagiarism and collusion and data fabrication, they've been around for donkey's years. People have been doing those things, getting caught for them. But there's other things that have cropped up in the last few years that make it a little bit more difficult for students to delineate the lines. So we've got things like AI at the moment and file sharing sites. And whilst these two types of technology provide real advantages for students learning, they also blur the line between what might be and what might not be academic misconduct. So we're going to have a look at some of those today: file sharing, contract cheating, and how to keep your students safe for generative AI, or with, I should say. And you're invited to ask questions as we go along, or put them in the chat and we'll address them. Yeah, so basically I think, while some genuine attempts at cheating do occur, for the most part, we think that students generally try and take an honest approach. So it's good if you speak to your students about that we know that it occurs, so that they know that we'll be looking for it as well. And then they'll be able to act accordingly the way that we'd like them to do. All right, so I might just jump to the next slide, if you would, please, Hong. So why do some students cheat? What I'd like you to do now is put into the chat various reasons that you think that might encourage a person to cheat. And then we'll have a look at what you've contributed and have a look at what the data says as well. Task difficulty, yeah, and that not understanding what's required. Thanks, Anjay. Two good points. Deadlines, that time management aspect, and whether or not there's too many things due at the same time. And Han, most of the people cheating do not get a penalty. Okay, so if people get away with it, it's more likely to engender it. Got any more ideas coming through? All right, if you come up with anything else, put it into the slide, into the chat, please. Language difficulties, good point. Thanks, Doreen. Huang, would you mind going to the next slide, please? So most students we know generally want to achieve, but there are some issues and some of them are being addressed in the chat column already. Individual things like family expectations, they don't want to disappoint their parents. That might be particularly true for a student who is the first in family to arrive at a university. And they're a little bit more vulnerable than others. They want to excel, high levels of stress if they're struggling with their study. There might be, as somebody said in the chat, a number of different assessment items due at the same time, left it to the last minute, and having difficulties with language. Somebody else mentioned that as well. Now, these contextual ones, like there's pressures to perform. It can be a highly competitive environment and some people just aren't quite ready for it. And peer attitudes and behavior, so they want to make sure that they do well. If, as I think Han said, if there's a perception that there's too many opportunities to cheat, if there's no matching software used, if some assessments have been used over and over and over from one semester to the next, and the answers are already out there, then there's more likely an increase in the people that will take advantage of it. Sometimes it comes down to just dissatisfaction with the course. If a student is doing a course that they don't necessarily want to do, but they have to do, then they may not value it as much. Or if they think the course is badly led or the teaching quality is not good and they have little interest in it, then that might be an issue as well. The other one on the bottom of that slide that you might find interesting is the ambiguous grey area. This is people who normally would not even consider engaging in misconduct, but something happens that causes them to take an opportunity that they wouldn't normally do. I don't know, a parent was injured in an accident and they knew the assessment was due and the pressure was on to get it done. It was the final semester of their course. That's what we mean by situational ethics, where your ethics can be swayed by the situation in which you find yourself. Okay, thanks, Hong. So use of AI. Last year, we were all scrambling around it. Weren't entirely sure where we were going with it, but we did come up with some options, and it's important that you know what these options are between you and your lecturer. There's three options for assessment. One is assessment tasks that prohibit the use of AI. There's option 2, which allows in-person assessment that does not permit AI. Or there's a third type of assessment, which is a really complex or authentic assessment that allows the use of AI to support the learning. Now, it's important that you know from your course coordinator exactly which option's being used, and then you'll know whether or not your students can, in fact, use AI within their assessment items. Most of them will probably be option 1, but do check if you're not sure. There are opportunities. We encourage, well, it's a university. We want people to learn, and there's opportunities for students to use AI at times and to learn about it as well. And if you refer to the library, they've got some great resources there on using AI and also how to reference it if the students do use it in a task in which they're permitted. Thanks, Hong. We'll go to the next one. There's some risks that we are aware of in using AI, and it's probably something that you could convey to your lecturers as well, sorry, to your students as well. It's not a good idea to put any information in that can identify you, so nothing private or sensitive. Anything that comes out of an AI tool, make sure you check it, because we know that the information it provides isn't always accurate. There's a tendency for it to make it up sometimes. So always check with a second source. If it is used for any study work, make sure it's acknowledged, and of course check with your course coordinator again before it's being used. Thanks, Hon. The other one that we just want to touch on today is contract cheating. Now, some of you may be familiar with contract cheating. It's a term that's been increasingly used in the last few years. It's a situation where somebody gets an assessment piece prepared by somebody else and submits it as if it's their own. Significant penalties apply. Now, we do know that, in days past, people might have a friend prepare an assessment, or they might use one that's already been submitted a couple of years previously and resubmitted it. But nowadays, because of technologies, there's also other opportunities where students can pay to have an assignment written for them and then submit it. So that's what we talk about, commercial contract cheating services, where they provide that service. A couple of cautionary tales about that. What they advertise and the qualifications of the people that write these papers don't always gel. Sometimes the companies will take students' details and information, contract to do the work, but then turn it out to a third party again. And there's also the risk that their data retention is not great, but they also have students' information. So there's the risk, and it has happened, where these companies have gone ahead to extort students in the past and into the future. So at the time of submission or in the year after, but it could also happen throughout a person's professional career. And that's not something that we want to happen to our students. But it's not just that paying service. It might be, two people sharing a flat and one person's better at a particular course and prepares the assessment. So it could be that or a family member. And also now, because of artificial intelligence, if the paper was prepared online through an AI tool, then that also would be contract cheating. We jump over, please, Hong. The next one I wanted to talk about was file sharing sites. Now, this is, when I was talking before, there's blurring of the lines. So with AI and file sharing sites, we know that there's good opportunities there for students. There's opportunity for them to learn, and it can be really helpful for them as well. But there's also the risk of engaging in misconduct. For instance, if a student was to, can we just jump on to the next one, please? Okay, so if, for instance, a student was to upload a file and somebody else used it in an assessment piece, both students could be charged with misconduct. Now, these file sharing sites operate on the basis that if you upload something, you get credit points or you get paid, and that enables you to download as well. So that's a risk. If it's just for their own work and not for an assessment item, downloading something might not be such an issue. But uploading it and not knowing who else is going to use it or where they're going to use it, that's when you come into a risk. The other one is any course material. So the lecturer's PowerPoint slides or handouts, if they're uploaded, then they're breaching UQ copyright and the intellectual property of the course coordinator. So these are things that you need to mention to your students just to make sure they're aware of it. And again, with the downloading, anything that's going to help them in an exam situation or an assessment item, such as an assignment, then that subjects them to charges of misconduct. Thanks, Hong. Now, the next thing we want to look at is how tutors can help. So your role as a professional is part of the teaching cycle. There's various things that you can do to contribute to improving academic integrity within the university and making the situation more workable for your students so that they know how they can proceed without engaging in misconduct. So the first one is working with your students. If you, as a tutor, develop strong relationships with your students so that they know that they can come to you and talk about it, not just the work, but if they're having issues getting it done. If you're a point of contact for them, then you can do something really good for them. Throughout your time with your students, you need to model academic integrity. So if you're going to put up PowerPoint slides and you've got a picture off the internet, make sure you say, you reference it. Same as if you come out with any claims within your notes or on your slides, make sure you let students know where that information came from. But even just having those conversations, I think that's a really important part of it. And letting your students know that you care about integrity will encourage them to care about integrity as well. Thank you, Hong. Other things you can do. People cheat. As a marker, it's a good idea if you can be on the lookout for cheating when you're doing your marking. Let students know that that's part of the process, that you look for it, and that's part of the team approach for all of your tutors and your course coordinator too. As a tutor, if you're marking and you do come across something that you consider may not be kosher, that it gives you the suspicion that some cheating has occurred, you don't talk to the student. Your role is simply to pass that information on to the course coordinator. UQ's got a process and various people who engage in that process to build a case if somebody's been cheating. But just remember, don't talk to them. Don't indicate your suspicions to the student. Just have a word to your course coordinator and show them what you think might be the evidence. Another thing we'd love you to do is to engage in the staff academic integrity modules. You've all done them as students, but these are a different set, and it'll help you understand, in the few years since you've done them, the message that's going to our current students, and it also helps build that culture of integrity throughout the university. Now, I've just put up on the screen there the percentage of students with a disability at UQ, and because I want to talk about student vulnerability. Now, we know that there's about 10.5% of our students have identified as having an issue with a disability, an impairment, or a medical condition. And for those students, if you can jump to the next slide, please, Hong. Sorry, go back. I took the other one out. When they did a survey through the UQ Union in 2022, asking students how a disability or a medical condition or impairment affected their work, they talked about functional capacities. And there were more than 60% of those students that said that it affected their functional capacities in more than 3 ways. So it might have been neurological, it might have been energy, it might have been mental health, or it might have been cognitively. So as a group, and I'm not identifying them saying they're likely to cheat, but it makes them vulnerable. And if you have students that you identify as having an issue, they're more likely to have a student access plan in place if they've been to the student advisor. And that's a plan that's worked out between the student advisor and the course coordinator to make sure that accommodations are put into place for those students. Now, as tutors, you need to know which of your students have a SAP, a student access plan, which ones have an exam accommodation, so that you can consider that when you're in class with them. And you need to know what the accommodations are that's been made for them. Just make sure, just check with your course coordinator at the beginning of the year that they've been shared, and then students might get SAPs throughout the semester, and just make sure that that message is passed along. Also, as a tutor, It may be that you notice a student and you think, well, that student's got issues and they're not being addressed. So you might make a recommendation to the student that they talk with a student advisor, or you might make that message clear to your course coordinator that perhaps he or she should suggest to the student that they should see a student advisor. And again, I'm not saying they're more likely to cheat. I'm just saying they're one of the more vulnerable groups, like people who have come from overseas and they're alone without their family, people who are first-time university students in their family. There's various groups that are more inclined to be vulnerable than others. Good, thank you, Hong.
Yeah, I believe that after this we have a question, right, Peter? A quiz.
We do.
Yep, so for those who have just joined us, if you want to scan the QR code here to join the next question that we have. But for those who have already been in the quiz, you do not have to scan it again if you are still on the quiz on your mobile. Okay, so let's move on to the quiz. Yep, we have a multiple choice question here. Educating students about academic integrity should occur. Please select your answers. You might need to refresh your mobile so that the new question is loaded on your mobile. Peter, would you like to comment on the answer of this question?
Yes, and everybody who said throughout the entire cycle has been listening, and I appreciate that. And they're thinking about what they'll be doing for the coming semester. Terrific.
Thank you. Now we have another question. What is one way a teacher might model academic integrity to students? Again, this is a multiple choice question. Yeah, so far, most of the participants select option D by including appropriate citations in all of their teaching materials.
But the person who selected B is also correct.
Yeah,
because
why
it's
is
just
that?
what's one way, making sure they record all the sources for their teaching materials.
Yeah.
Well, in case they're questioned, they're not likely to be questioned, but they certainly should be recording the information as they go so that they can present it in the work that they do. And I'm sure when students do assignments, that's exactly what they do as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong if you picked C. I don't think anybody did, but it's worthwhile addressing that issue with your students.
Yeah, so I guess that this is a multiple select where you can select more than one answers here.
Yeah, maybe not A.
Yeah, not A. Yeah, thank you. All right, so now this is my turn to present about Turnitin. So Turnitin is one of the online submission tool, which is quite popular at UQ. I am aware that there are also Blackboard where academic can create the submission link for students to submit in Blackboard, but Turnitin is a tool that can provide the text matching in the similarity report form, and also it has an AI indicator. So in my part, I'm going to introduce briefly about if you have a Turnitin submission, how you should go to mark to interpret the similarity report and the AI indicator in student submissions. So a few words about the Turnitin. So Turnitin is a web-based submission and the feedback tool, and the key features include the text matching software, AI writing indicators and the different online marking, such as you can provide comments, create a comment banks to have quick mark with rubric, and provide overall feedback. It supports a variety of file types, and it has assessment analytics. However, even though Turnitin have text matching, for example, when students' ideas or words that are presented in their own work, it will show the matching. But whether the work has been plagiarized or not, it depends on your professional judgment. So I will show you in the sample later on to highlight these 2 points. So now let me move on to the submission that I have created here to provide you a showcase of what it looks like in the submission. So let me move my browsers here. So this is a Blackboard course. If you have Turnitin submission link in one of the assessment, how you can check the setting of the submission link. The case might be your course coordinator have already set up the submission link. As a tutor, you can click on the link and then it will bring you to the assignment inbox. And then on the top right, you can see the code button. If you can click on the code button, it will present the setting of the submission link. And what you can check is click on the optional settings and you can check the submission settings. And the right one is standard paper repository, because it will compare or match the submission that your students submit with other database that Turnitin has. Only in case that the student have a practice link, you select do not store the submitted paper, but in most of the cases, the standard paper repository is the correct setting that you should choose. Allow late submissions and rubric is a very good functionality that can help the marking become more precise and provide more detailed feedback on different criteria and also level of achievement for each criteria. For the similarity report here, the setting in the middle is the correct one, because according to UQ policy, students are allowed to submit after the due date, and also before the due date, they can resubmit. And also we encourage the student to view their own similarity report. And this one is very important. I am aware that in some of the courses, you might exclude the bibliographic materials or quoted material or small sources. But now, especially with the AI-generated material, we always recommend that you do not select to exclude these sources, because we want to maximize the matching. And I'm going to explain why maximize the text matching in Turnitin is a good feature. And then, of course, we want to compare against all sources possible in Turnitin. And if you do not change any setting here, you do not need to click submission. And then let's go back to the assignment inbox so that I can show you some of the sample assessment. So here I have the sample student, and I have used all of my previous assignments. So 2 years ago, I did a certificate in about e-learning, digital teaching with another university, not at UQ. And this is my real submissions. So I'm going to show you for the similarity report here. I'm not that bad, but I'm going to explain. So first, let's have a look at this assignment. So if I click on the assignment, what can I see? So I have 100% of the similarity report. The reason is that I have submitted this one many times as trial submission for different submission link for myself only. So it matched my current submission to the previous submission. So what can I do? I can click on the source here. And then down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see exclude sources. So if I click onto that, I exclude the sources here. And then the similarity report go down to 40%. So I remember this one when I submitted to the other university, it comes back at 40%. Whether this 40% is the high percentage or low percentage, it depends on the nature of the submission of the assignment. So if the assignment requires the student to do literature review, so part of that is the literature review, and the other part might be the applications of the knowledge that they learn to analyze the case or to provide recommendations. Then the matching tend to be high. So this is 40%, and as the marker, you need to look through the text and to read to see whether the student first having a good referencing practice, whether they reference the sources that they use in their text, and also whether they meet other criteria, for example, whether they have sufficient critical analysis or they only summarize the literature that was covered in the course material. And down here, you can see there is an AI indicators. So I complete the degree, the certificate before the availability of genetic AI, the ChatGPT. So at that time, I was not aware of AI, so I didn't use any material. So the AI tool is good in this case because it didn't provide any false positive on my submission. So I'm happy about that. So let me close that submission. And let's have a look at another submission that I have created this morning. It has only 39% of similarity report. So let me click onto that and we will try to understand where it comes from. So for the submission that I created this morning, the first part is from ABC Just in New. So this is the latest new, and Turnitin has not been updated with the news that comes out this morning yet. So the first part was not matched in the similarity report. However, for sources like Wikipedia, of course, it's matched the whole paragraph that I have copied. And the third one, I use the same topic about the bats, but I use Copilot, previously known as Bing Chat. So just a note about the Copilot. No, I didn't have that one here, but I will send you the link later. As academics at UQ, you have access to Bing Chat or Copilot to use as generative AI, and we have the corporate license so that all the information that you provide or requested from Copilot will be protected and will not be shared outside UQ. So for that, for the AI generated part, I have the reading of 53%. And as the marker, you can click on the AI indicators and it will open the submission on another tab on your browser up here. And then it do not do any text matching at the similarity report, but if you're scrolling down, it matches the text that has been generated by Copilot. And for the references here, a note about the references, when you mark student submission, you expect the student to provide the academic resources, for example, journal article, book chapters, or edited book. But for the references that I have here, it was created by Copilot, and it is sources like Wikipedia, the New York Times, so it is the daily newspaper, but not the academic sources. So in this case, even though the references here look real, it's not the academic sources. And if you have the criteria about references, you should maybe mark this one down. And if you want to compare between the AI report and the similarity report, the similarity report is still in your browser, but you can find it down from your internet browser at the bottom of the screen. So if I click on the similarity report here, it is the similarity report. And then it's match the two sources here. It didn't match the first one, so probably the first sources here is not the right one, because as I have said, the references here are created by Copilot, the generative AI. So this is how you can view the student submission if you use Turnitin. Let me, okay, I have another functionality that I'd like to show you. Even with this submission setting, I didn't exclude any bibliographic sources, but if I want to mark, but if I want to view a submission without those sources, I can click on the filter button here, and then you can exclude the quote, exclude the bibliography, and see what is the percentage of the submission. So if I go back to the submissions here, if I use my original submission that I have just shown you before, I exclude the similar submission that I had before, but now I'm going to exclude the quote and bibliography. And then I apply change down here, and let's see. Okay, so it goes down to 14%. Yeah, and then look through, and just a note that this is a high marked paper I use for submission. Another note, I know that some courses do not use Turnitin for marking. They use Blackboard assessment for some reason. For example, if it is a group submission, Blackboard can handle the group submission better than Turnitin. And I'm aware that some course coordinator created two submission links, one in Turnitin, so that they can see the similarity report and maybe the AI generation generated text, but then marking in the Blackboard. So it is a good practice, but just be mindful that if any student fail to submit in Turnitin, it should not be the point where you mark the student down or fail the student from the course, because in the policy, we only require students to complete one submission for one type of assessment. But for all of the details, please check again with your course coordinator.
Thank you, Hong. It's probably really interesting for people to see how it works from the teacher's side of things. And, you know, there's often been the thought that 3% is great, 43%, there's something wrong, but it's not necessarily that way. Hong, I was just going to point out in the chat, there's a few questions there, if you'd like to address them.
Sure.
From 1033, please repeat how to work with Turnitin.
Okay, yeah.
That was a very early one. So how do you get into it, I think?
Yeah. Okay, so are the settings set by course coordinator? Yes, the settings are set by your course coordinator, but as I said, you can click on the link, go to the setting and check it yourself as well. And maybe you can share with your course coordinator about the knowledge and skill that you have learned today, and make suggestions to them. The first reference is not being the right one. Doreen, yeah, thank you for the question. The first references that I show you might not be, I'm not saying that it is the wrong one, because it is not matched by Turnitin. So when you look at the similarity report, and then you scroll down to the reference part, you expect that all of the references should be matched, because we do not exclude any sources. And if they are matched, this is a good sign, because all of the references are within Turnitin database, and Turnitin has a huge database. If it is not matched, two reasons. One is that it's very new. It had just come out, and Turnitin has not updated it yet. That is one reason. The other reason is that it is the makeup one, so that Turnitin cannot match that with any sources that it has. So in that case, you might need to copy the references that the student provide, search that on the internet to see if it is the correct one. But again, as tutor, we do not expect you to go into that detailed checking. Is that correct, Peter? Because we are aware that it will be very time consuming. If you are in doubt, go to your course coordinator and report any suspicions that you have. So yeah, just a very quick show of this one. This is two submissions. One is 5%, the other 30%. And we should be happy with the 30% because it contains sources that the student quote, and all the sources are matched in the references here. And on the other one, the 5% student only copy and paste a whole paragraph without any references material. And then they write the whole essay without referring to any academic sources, which we do not want. So I hope that I made my point clear here. And now I would like to move to the marker responsibility part and leave the stage back to Peter.
Thank you.
And if you still have any question, please type in the chat and then we'll monitor the chat as well. And
Lovely.
then Peter. Yeah.
We might just jump ahead 2 slides, please, Hong. So pass the next one on to the one after, because I think I covered that. We're going through a lot of information, but it is available to you. Or, well, it's certainly available to your course coordinators through the Italy site. There's staff resources there. Whether or not you can access them, I'm not entirely sure. I should know, but I don't. But certainly your course coordinator can, because they're behind a wall just to prevent anybody from getting hold of them. One of the resources there is class discussion notes. So if you do want to talk to your students, there's a set of slides and notes that accompany each slide that can be included either in your course coordinator's first class or second class, or you might like to pull it apart for your tutorials in consultation with your course coordinator, of course. These ones about marking are also available in more detail. So what we can cover in an hour isn't nearly as much as you might be able to access from the site and have a look for yourself. This is just red flags that it might arouse your suspicion on cheating. So again, it's been pointed out a few times, make sure if you have suspicions, it's just simply passed on to the course coordinator. These are red flags. These are drawn out from contract cheating, but they're applicable to anybody. And one of their main messages is, if you're looking for something, you're more likely to find it. So we know your role as markers, your time, pressed for time to get through it. But if you can look for things, you may just well pull up somebody who has acted with a lack of integrity in their work. So these are the things that you might look for in your documents. And honestly, have a look at the resources that are on the Italy site for more detail. So you can do a bit of a document analysis. It might be that the guidelines have not been followed, and they might not be in the sections that's expected that, as described by a course coordinator, because if it was passed on to somebody else, they wouldn't have all the information that's required to complete the assessment, particularly after it's been discussed in class. If there's language that's not typical for a student of their progress, so like a first year student, if it doesn't sound right, there's a good chance that it might not be. If it doesn't match the discipline, then that might be an issue as well. So it might have been written from an engineer's perspective for a mathematical issue, so cross-discipline work. Often we find, particularly with contract cheating, the formatting's wrong. There might be additional pages in there. There might be names wrong, more than double spacing, or really large headers and footers because they get paid by the page. So they're not particularly worried about upsetting the formatting. Language style changes. So if it's in one style and then the font changes, if it's perhaps used as American spelling, that might be an indicator for you. If the language is wrong for what you expect at that level, if the text is confusing, if the references don't match references that you think should be accessed by your students. It might be from a foreign country. It might be something that's out of date. It might be something that just isn't appropriate. And it just, raises those prickles on the back of your neck. People can look into the IP address where it was done, how, if the students use their single sign-on to access information or not, how often they've gone back to Blackboard All of those searches are available to our staff. But one of the key things about it is marker instinct. You, as a developing tutor, and in the months and years to come, will have an instinct for what feels right and what doesn't feel right, particularly within your discipline. So as you're marking it, trust your gut on some things, I guess is the real message. If there's an overlap from previous work or something doesn't match and you're just reading it through and you think, hang on, this can't be right, and you go back and read it through again, that's when you're at the point of suspicion. So that's when you really should consider passing it on to your course coordinator or another tutor to have a look at first. Now, in isolation, all of these things may be innocent, but it's worth looking into it, and we appreciate your efforts in doing so. And that's where I'm going to stop, Hong, because I see the time is pushed. It may be that we've got some more questions that people would like to raise, and I know you've got some quizzes prepared.
So yeah, no problem. Peter, would you like to run this question for the participant, or you would like to open the stage for Q&A?
I think do this one.
Yeah.
So it'll only take a moment.
Sure, I need to close that one first. Yeah, just in case that you need to, you clicked out and then you need to scan again. Otherwise, you can refresh your mobile phone and you can join the question. Maybe I have already moved to the second one, so.
Yeah, we might skip that one.
Yeah. So do you want to run this question?
Yeah.
Or?
No, we might leave that one. Let's just see the results on that first question. And then we can look at any other questions people might have and support available.
Yeah, sure.
So most people chose A, academic. Oops, that's the wrong one. Have you got the one about the vulnerable people, Hong?
Yeah, I think that I might have already skipped that.
Okay.
I can go back to that, but maybe we discuss this question first.
We can, and I'll have to quickly have a look. Honesty, fairness, reliability, responsibility, and courage. So you really should be looking at B there, not reliability in A, which seems to be the favourite answer. That tick on C, Hong, is that indicating that's the correct one, is it? Okay, well done. Even I got it wrong. I put reliability, that's the one that threw me in B. So honesty, trust, responsibility, respect, and courage. Thank you, Hong. Now, given the time that we've got, how many people have a question that they'd like to ask? You can put it into the chat or you can turn your microphone on if you have any questions. No, Hong, it looks like we might have told them everything they need to know. Oh, no, there's Han. Thank you, Han.
Yeah, I am new to the process of academic teaching or marking in UQ, and I would like to clarify the process, how we manage academic integrity issue with the student. If the student have a problem with academic integrity, what next will be happen?
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
So how do we manage the student who have the problem with academic integrity?
Talk to your course coordinator.
I just want to know about the process UQ manage the student, not only about how the tutor will work with the student. I know that the student will refer the case to the unit coordinators But what next will be happen for the students? Just
Okay, so-
curiosity.
Yep. We have in each of the schools integrity officers and another one in faculties. So a case is developed and they will discuss it and determine whether there's sufficient evidence that they want to proceed with it. And if so, a student is given a show cause letter to explain their actions, and they'll sit before the board so that they can talk about it. And then if it's determined that there has been misconduct, then a decision is made about what sort of penalty that might be applied. And that penalty might be as simple as repeating the academic integrity modules. We've got a remedial set for that, but it could also be as severe as suspension from the university.
Thank you.
Great. Somebody else asked, Hong, yes. How come we got the last question wrong? Doreen, you got the same issue as I did. Integrity requires courage as well, but not that reliability one. All right, given the time, Hong, can I just share that slide about the legitimate support that's available?
Yep, sure.
Look, and I just want to let everybody know you're sort of the face of our teaching, because particularly in large courses, if there's more than 1,000 or something, it's very rare for the lecturer to have as close contact with their students as a tutor can. So as the face of the university and the face of our teaching, you're in a great position to support our students. If students are struggling, if they're having troubles, if you think they might be vulnerable, there's places you can advise them to go to for help. First one, and this should be stressed at the beginning of the semester, they come and speak to you, or they come and speak to the course coordinator and try and get some support that way. Student Services has a range of different support that can help them, as does the library. If you notice students, you might have a student with ADHD, or they might present as autistic. There's support available for them through Student Services, and they can get a student access plan and exam adjustments that will support them. If you've got students that are neurodivergent, there's a hub there that can offer them support, and you can direct them to it. And there's a range of services available to them as well. And that's it pretty much from me, Hong. Did you have anything to add?
No, yeah, I just want to wish everyone to have a great semester.
Yep, all the best with your teaching, everybody. I'm just quickly scanning the questions to make sure we haven't missed any. And it doesn't seem so, but thank you everybody for attending. We hope that it's been of value to you and that it will contribute to your time in the classroom with your tutorials. Thank you very much.
Yeah, after the workshop, I will send you a follow-up email with the resources that we have and also the recording link. So all the best, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.